Well, we've got quite a little introduction here. The agenda is posted in the building of the Levee District 1 at 243 2nd Street, Yuba City. The agenda summary, backup materials, and approved minutes are also posted on the Feather River West Levee Financing Authority website. Materials related to an item on this agenda and submitted to the Board of Directors after distribution of the agenda packet are available for public inspection in Levee District 1's office during normal business hours. In compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the meeting room is wheelchair accessible and disabled parking is available. If you have a disability and need disability-related modifications or accommodations to participate in the meeting, please contact the board clerk at 755-9859. Requests must be made one full business day before the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the board during consideration of matters listed in the agenda will be allowed to do so. Testimony should always begin with the speaker giving his or her name and place of residence. Requests for assistive listening devices or other accommodations such as interpretive services should be made through the board clerk. Requests should be made at least 72 hours prior to the meeting. Why don't we go through this with? Oh, we don't?
No.
Why didn't you tell me to shut up?
Andrew and I were texting each other.
You think I was enjoying that, or you?
We thought you were, by the time you got done, it would be 2 o'clock.
With my bifocals that I don't like bobbing my head like a robin in the springtime. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please? Tara?
Charlie Hoppin.
Yes.
Mike Morris.
Here.
Liz McKelly.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance.
Michael? Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was mean, not stopping. Members of the public are allowed to address the Feather River West Levee Financing Authority. Do we have any members of the public here or on the phone? Hearing none. We have a consent calendar with 3 items. Would anybody like to move to?
I'll make the motion.
Second. The consent's just one item, the minutes.
One shows 3.
Yeah, the 2 and 3 are under the presentation heading.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, those in favor of passing the consent calendar signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Presentation, discussion, and action items. Adoption of resolution approving the 2024-25 fiscal year assessment district budget and levy collection of assessments for the Feather River West Levee Financing Authority Operations and Maintenance Assessment District in Sutter County. Seth, that's why you've been standing there, huh?
Yep. All right. So this will be pretty quick. So the recommendation, as you noted, was to adopt a resolution approving the levy of the assessments for 24-25. As part of that, we approved the budget, and that's what drives the amount of the assessment levy. So the prior year budget last year was $2,112,546. The assessment is subject to an escalator based on the annual change in CPI capped at 4%. Last year, the CPI escalator that we were using was greater than 4%, so our escalation was capped at that 4. The board approved that escalation. This year, the CPI escalation rate is 3.77%. So the budget with that escalation is $2,225,880. We net from that budget the allocation of expenses to general benefit. And so the net levy The amount that we would levy on all property tax bills subject to the assessment would be $2,125,900. So that is the recommendation from staff, is to levy an assessment for fiscal year 24-25 at that rate at $2,125,900. The way that that would break down is shown here on this table in the far left column. We showed that total budget of $2,225,880. And when you net from that, the allocation to general benefits of $99,980, that bottom row, that you get to that net levy of $2,125,900. That $99,980, the way that the assessment district budget handles that is LD9 has their general fund property taxes, so we utilize that revenue to cover those costs so that we can demonstrate to the public that we can fully fund the budget of $2,225,880. So the way that the $2,125,900 would be allocated to LD1 and LD9 is based upon the proportionality of the first what we would do is reserve from the assessments from the first apportionment the administrative budget of the agency for Frau Levee. That would be $93,403 based upon the escalation. And then the balance is allocated 82.1% to LD1 to cover both LD1 and the now annexed and assumed responsibilities for the MA3 levy, a former MA3 levy. And then the 17.9% would go to LD9. And that would be split as the money came in after the reserve of $93,403 to Frau Levee. So this is just shows what each agency, LD1 and LD9, can expect from if the board was to approve the budget of $2,225,880 and the levy of the assessments for 24-25. So that's the total, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
The question I've got is we've got the escalator in there that, is a tool we can use without being questioned. If we don't feel at the time that we need the money, is it more prudent to continue collecting it with the escalator and set it in reserve for times ahead? Or would it be something that periodically we could not have the escalator for a year?
I think I would defer, unfortunately, to Drew on this in terms of what the needs are of the agencies of LD1 and LD9 from a project and maintenance perspective. If there are things that are deferred maintenance, or I understand that there's desire to expand the facilities or upgrade the LD1 facility. When you're saving money for capital type expenditures, it would make sense to levy that now. If not, but otherwise I'd defer to Drew on that.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, can you do that? Yes, I think you can, but would you do that? I guess once you defer.
They were both questions. I mean.
Yeah, if you defer, there's no chance in collecting those funds down the road. And in this
You can reserve the escalation for future years.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yes, you can. So if we didn't collect it this year, then you could escalate the budget, in the future to collect that on a later tax bill. That would be obviously a much greater proportional increase on a property owner's tax bill from year to year than they would otherwise see. But the authorizing resolution that when we adopted the assessment allows for the reservation of the escalation from year to year.
Through the chair, I've seen kind of what you're talking about in other areas, and when you stop the collecting or the de-escalation, and then you throw it, and then you go back out there and do it again, you get a lot of negative feedback from it. Like for instance, and I'll just come out and say it, for Yuba City for water. They weren't collecting much. They never brought the amount up. And then once they did, they got hammered.
Okay. Thank you.
And on that point, I think one of our arguments for taking over MA3 is because we didn't want to have property owners fluctuate their assessment by a wide margin, so this would effectively create that all over.
Well, my thought wasn't to hold them as Seth said we can legally do and then lump them up. My thought was if we aren't going to really be utilizing the money from a taxpayer's standpoint, would it be prudent to just not do the escalator for a year? But doesn't seem there's an answer to that.
I mean, and just to be, for full transparency, your maximum escalator in this year is 3.77%. You could do something less than that. You could say 3, anything from 0 to 3.77.
Through the chair, yeah, that was my next question, is you don't always have to take the max on that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Even though, Charlie, I understand what you're saying with the whole, it'd be nice not to bill them for everything. I do understand that.
My point is just because we have the ability to escalate,
Yeah.
if there isn't necessarily a need, is it the most responsible thing to the taxpayer to say, we're not going to escalate this year? But
One more quick question. Do you know what the average is of the CPI over, I don't know, a certain period of years? And the reason that I ask that is just because it maybe we don't just not take anything or escalate it one year, but just lessen it, right? So like Mike said, you're not taking it one year and then all of a sudden taking it in max the next year, which could be kind of a shock to people, right? So, I mean, maybe there's some sort of mix we could do there, but anyway.
I don't know the average of this particular index that we're utilizing from, over several years, but it has trended up higher in the past. Like last year, jumping over 4% was the first time we had seen that in a long time.
well, Mike has a good point. If we don't do it, I mean, contrary to my thought, if we don't do it, and then all of a sudden we put it back in, they're not going to appreciate when we didn't do it. They're going to ask why the hell we did it now, so.
Is there a assessment or a indexing increase for the Sabufka assessment?
No, so Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency's assessment does not increase from year to year. Because it's solely a capital assessment, the idea was we're issuing debt. The debt service is primarily level over time, and so there is no escalator. So we levy at the full rate. I mean, we could levy at less than what our authorization is if we did need to, but given the fact that we're Sutter Butte's sitting in front of capital projects and still seeking additional funding, levying at the full rate is prudent because we have projects to complete. So not a similar situation here. So we're seeking approval of the resolution presented to.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Aye.
Yeah, so each time we've had a Fralifa board meeting, we've presented where we sit relative to the $750,000 that was allocated by Sutter Butte to Fralifa for the formation of the JPA and the associated assessment. Where we sit as of, I think we pulled this information yesterday, June 11th. We're at $698,587 relative to the $750,000. This the service agreement between Fralifa and Sutter Butte extends through June 30, 2024, so another couple weeks. After June 30, what will happen is Fralifa will send a letter to Sutter Butte saying, thank you for your services over the past several years. We no longer need it. Fralifa is in a situation now after having levied the assessment for the first year that it has sufficient funds to contract for services on its own. And then it will start making the payments. Once we determine what the final accounting is as of June 30, we still have May services to pay bills for and any June services to pay bills for. Once we have that final dollar amount, which I expect to be less than $750,000, take that number, divide it by 15, and then that will trigger the first payment from Fralifa to Sutter Butte to repay this $750,000 over the next 15 years. Well, there's no interest. Students' loans have interest, I can guarantee that, so. But no interest, just straight level payments over the next 15 years. And so at that point, we'll be in a position to then no longer be presenting this. Sutter Butte services will be done. So we just wanted to let the board know where we stood financially based on the latest information, and then let the board know what the process is moving forward.
You mentioned the term and I forgot, was it 15 years?
It was,
No, I really don't remember.
it was 15. I think we had proposed 12, and based on your recommendation, it was 15, so it was accepted. Yeah, so that's where we sit. So we won't hit that 750. I think there's some additional costs associated with this board meeting and the prep of everything, but otherwise, that reservation of that 90 some odd $1,000, that will be used to pay the payment from Fralifa to Sutter Butte, and then the remainder of that amount, a budget that the board approved, will be utilized to administer the agency, which shouldn't be much. I think we have all of the work that we've done over the last 2 years to kind of leverage going forward. So a couple of board meetings a year, and that's it. Well, I mean, I think part of the efficiency is having the board meetings on the same days. It should be pretty minimal between Sutter Butte and Fralifa, and then the other costs would be, I could assist Drew in, preparing for the meetings, working with Wildan and coordinating that, and then making sure the budget's okay, but it should be pretty minimal. The board, at its last meeting in February, delegated authority to the executive director to execute contracts up to $10,000, and that should be sufficient. Yeah, exactly. A lot of cut and paste. Check the dates every year. All right.
Any questions, Scott?
So that's it.
Anything before the board while we're here? We don't meet very often. Any comments or requests from?
If I may, one other suggestion was that to move the start times of these meetings from 2 to back to 1:30 so that it's more efficient. We don't have to stick around and wait.
Just say when the
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to change our agendas in the future to 1:30 instead of 2?
I don't think we need to. All right. Thank you.